What makes a good indie game sequel? Is it offering the same, but with a bit more content thanks to a higher budget? Is it adding layers to the existing fundamentals from the original? Is it adding a shocking twist that revolutionises the way that you played the game the very first time around? Or is it all of the above? Well, to me, it seems like Slay the Spire 2 has gone for the latter approach, and tried to do a little bit of everything to improve on the original game. But has this indie sequel managed to ascend to new levels, or has it all come crashing down? Well, today I'm going to be talking you through my thoughts on Slay the Spire 2 so far. I'll be talking you through what's good, what can be improved, and whether you should consider picking up this title already. Bear in mind that this game is still in early access right now on Steam, so more content is going to be added over time, and the game will most likely be available on other platforms too. So why don't we jump on ahead and talk about what's new with Slay the Spire 2. So without a doubt for me, the biggest additions to Slay the Spire 2 is the new set of characters. While most of the characters from the original title have returned, namely the Ironclad, the Defect, and the Silent, the Watcher is not in this game and has been replaced with two different characters. The first new character is the Regent. Now he comes across as a regal, lethargic type that likes to force other people to do his dirty work. And the way the mechanics for this character works kind of reflects that. They have a magic giant sword circling around their throne that basically deals a load of damage, but they also have something else that's really useful, which is a secondary energy system that can be used to unleash skills and powerful attacks without using up your actual energy source. I found it really interesting trying to balance the cards right in this build to make sure you're getting enough stars to go alongside your energy, but also not relying on one over the other too much, because that's when you start sort of bricking yourself and you can't really do anything about it. You just then have to accept your fate, which is always a scary thought, especially in a game that's quite as unforgiving as this one. But if you want to try something a little bit different, then the second new character, the Necrobinder, is actually a worthy option too. As the name suggests, they're sort of a necromancy type build where you have a companion called Osti who you'll need to help grow and flourish so you can then unleash attacks with them and save yourself in the process. There's also a really cool doom mechanic tied to the Necrobinder. This basically allows her to fill up her life meter to the point where you can actually defeat enemies if their HP is equal to the amount of doom you have. Along with these two new playable characters, there's also new cards and items for the existing characters, along with other cards that have returned but with a slight modification. Overall, it seems like there's more mechanics available for all of the characters, making it easier to diversify the focus of your run each time, adding more replay value, meaning instead of the couple hundred hours that you could easily put into the original, you could probably now easily get to the 1,000 hour territory in this game without getting too bored. Probably the most impactful change, however, is the new visuals and animations. One of the things that you could possibly critique the original Slay the Spire for was that its visuals seem kind of outdated, and while the more hand-drawn style is kind of iconic at this point, from a general fidelity and detail level, the game was lacking a little bit of substance. However, the new game improves that tenfold. The characters look sharp and crisp, while still keeping that cartoony nature to them, and you can actually see what's going on in the background, and there's definitely a lot more variety this time around. But probably the headline change for this game is the new co-op mode. Now, if I'm being honest here, I haven't actually had a chance to play the co-op mode yet, so I can't really speak too much about it. Hopefully I'll be able to try it soon, and I'll be able to give you my thoughts and opinions then. But from what I've seen, it doesn't really have an effect on the single player mode, which is good. I don't necessarily want them to be intertwined, especially because a co-op deck building game is somewhat of a new idea and it could get messy very quickly. But from what I've heard from people that have played the new co-op mode, it's definitely interesting and worth a shot, but for most people they're likely to stick to the single player experience anyway. So apart from adding new characters, cards and abilities, what else has actually changed in Slay the Spire 2? The one thing I've noticed so far is that the events seem to be more significant than the previous game, and whilst they're not necessarily more frequent than they were before, they have more of a lasting effect across your entire run. For example, on one of the first runs I played, I picked up a mysterious key and I had to hold it in my deck for the whole time until I got to the second act. Then in one of the rooms along the middle of the route, I could then gain access to a special reward, which I could have easily missed out on if I decided to get rid of the card. Or what could have been even worse, I could have been defeated before I even got the chance. I'm actually quite a fan of this change, because it means that you have to think further than just the next couple of rooms. Another big change comes in how you start each act. Now at the end of acts in the previous game, you did get some rewards, and of course you got your health fully restored. However, all of these rewards come from Niao, who's the big giant whale thing, who's also in this game, but only appears at the start of the first act. For acts 2 and 3, you'll encounter new beings instead, and this group is called the Ancients. These are beings that might look familiar to you if you played the first game, and they've been at the Spire for over 1,000 years. So they want to help you win by giving you 3 powerful deals, one of which you can take at the beginning of each act. Meaning that essentially every time you enter a new act, you can completely transform your game. But now for the big question. Could more have been done with Slay the Spire 2? And maybe more importantly for this early access title, does it need more adding to it to make it more a worthwhile purchase? Well, to be honest, there's nothing really bad about this game that I've encountered so far. Don't get me wrong, they've started off with a pretty decent template, but they haven't rocked the boat too much, and they haven't really ruined any of the aspects of the original that made it so popular among deck building and roguelike fans alike. But that's not me saying that they couldn't have gone further with some of the elements that they've implemented in Slay the Spire 2. Like for example, I think they could have gone a lot further when it comes to animations. In particular, I think it would have been really nice to see more special animations and maybe even some animated cutscenes for special event rooms and encounters, and even the timeline thing that they've added in when you gain achievements. I think they could have easily been 10 to 15 second cutscenes to make the game feel even more alive without interrupting the gameplay loop too much. Another thing for me was the variety of enemies. They seem to have just replaced or modified enemies from the original instead of adding more to the game itself, meaning that you still encounter the same type of enemies as you go through the acts, which is something I'm hoping that they're planning on adding as the game advances and gets closer to its 1.0 release. So they're my main thoughts on Slay the Spire 2 so far, but what's my final verdict? But before we do that, this is actually my first ever review on the Shuffle Punch channel. Yep, thank you very much. Thank you. No, you're too kind. So to do that, I've got to introduce you to a rating system that suits me and this channel. You'll see what I did there in a minute. Given my channel has a sort of playing cards theme to it, I've decided to categorize my games in conjunction with the suits of playing cards. So the lowest category I have is called Bury It. These are games that I basically won't recommend to people and should probably be tucked away in that corner of the internet, never to be seen again. Next up is Diamonds in the Rough. This is for games that I enjoyed some aspects of, but I can't necessarily recommend as a must-play title for the majority of people. It might just be something that's a little bit divisive that I actually enjoyed, or it might just be that the game in general is pretty good, but there's a couple of glaring issues that need to be addressed. Next up, we have fan favourites. To be honest, this is probably going to be the most populated category. These are games that I really enjoy, but probably lack 1 or 2 things to give it the star quality to be considered among the very best games of all time. And then we have the 1% Club. This is the creme de la creme. These are games that will be at the top of my list when it comes to Game of the Year conversations, Game of the Generations, Game of the Decade, and to be honest, games of all time. Not many games will have the privilege of joining the 1% Club, but today we're actually in for something very special. Now for context, I think it's important to say if I had to give the original Slay the Spire a rating, I would definitely put it in the 1% Club. And though the game is still in early access, so it's kind of hard to put it in one category over the other, I've been trying to persuade myself that this game doesn't deserve to be in the 1% Club just yet, but it's pretty much the game that I already adore, with, in my opinion, a better selection of characters, better cards, and a more fun gameplay loop. So for that reason, the game that I'm reviewing for the very first time is going to the very top, baby. We've got our very first 1% club. Overall, I just think this game shows how to do an indie sequel successfully, and it really takes on the mantra of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And even though this game is still in early access, it basically feels like a complete experience already, so it's definitely worth jumping into and picking up if you haven't already. And if you have the original game, you can get Slay the Spire 2 on discount on Steam. I got it for £17, which to me, for the amount of hours that I'm probably going to end up putting into this game, feels like an absolute bargain. But now it's over to you. What are your thoughts on Slay the Spire 2 so far? And do you have any other games that you think I should review in the near future? I'm going to be mainly focusing on deck building and action games, but if there's something else in particular that catches my eye, I won't be afraid to give that a go too. But until I have another game to review, I will see you all later.